We could not hold it physically. So we are here virtually in the online mode. And we are happy that we got all the speakers here to talk on the issue of or on the theme of corporate governance under the Companies Act 2013 and SEBI LODR 2015. We will start the program with the anthem of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, who is the knowledge partner in this event.
Asatu ma sadgamaya tamsu ma jyotirgamaya mrityur ma mritangamaya asatu ma sadgamaya tamsu ma jyotirgamaya.
We have a small clip of NFCG describing the activities of National Foundation for Corporate Governance for furtherance of corporate governance practices in the country.
Corporate governance has been the keystone to successful economies. To align with these global ethos of good governance, to ensure transparency, to boost confidence amongst investors, and build trust in the stakeholders, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, MCA, in the year 2003, partnered with Confederation of Indian Industry, Institute of Company Secretaries of India, and the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, set up the National Foundation for Corporate Governance. With a vision to be a key facilitator and reference point for the highest standards of good corporate governance in India and its mission, NFCG further made a significant difference to Indian corporate sector. Post-2010, other stakeholders also came forward to join NFCG in fostering a culture of good corporate governance practices. For more than a decade, NFCG as a catalyst has been successful in sensitizing industry on the implementation of corporate governance practices through seminars, conferences, workshops, and directors' orientation programs, thus contributing to the society at large. Developing a framework for corporate governance reforms, the Foundation not only facilitates the effective participation of diverse stakeholders, but also deepens links with national organizations for collaborative actions, promoting voluntary adoption of corporate governance practices as the key to sustainable wealth creation. With this continuous endeavor to strive for excellence, NFCG is changing the regulatory landscape in the country by gaining a momentum for better corporate governance in every way possible. NFCG is continuing its initiatives towards achieving this goal and thus fostering the economic progress of India.
I must say that organizing this orientation program on corporate governance under the Companies Act 2013 and SEBI LODR 2015, it is so appropriate to have thought about conducting this orientation program in the midst of this concern being expressed about the performance of the public sector undertakings in the country, and in general the public discourse on their divestment. But we must also be cognizant of the fact that since independence, the public sector undertakings, whether under the control of the central government or various state governments, they have played a very important role as far as the growth story or the progress of the country is concerned. And in fact, they have been the backbone of the economies since independence. The state level public sector enterprises have been no exception in contributing to the state economy and that of the country as a whole. But as all of you are aware that the liberalization in 1991 gave an impetus for a market-driven economy. And it is then that the entrepreneurial spirit of Indians was let loose, and then the private sector started flourishing, and this actually put pressure to perform, on the part of the public sector entities, and they came under increasing scrutiny. As you are aware that these public sector entities have very sort of unique governance structure, wherein you have a significant presence of the government, and given that they are somewhat unique in their in the nature of the responsibilities as well as the kind of operations they undertake, they have to also face the market challenges. They have to also be profitable. At the same time, they are supposed to be also socially responsible, environmentally conscious, and then what have you. So this is not a very sort of enviable situation as far as the public sector undertakings are concerned, because they are constrained not only by the regulatory framework of the country, but as I said, since there is that much less room to maneuver because of the various the ownership and management architecture which is prevailing in the PSUs. So on the one hand, these public sector undertakings have to deliver on the mandate for which they were set up, but at the same time, some of these also have to conform to the regulatory framework which is existing in the country, including that of SEBI. So with this above background, the topic of corporate governance for such enterprises has always been very intriguing subject of study and practice alike. For some of us who are not from the field of business administration or corporate studies, I think if I were to put it sort of very crudely, the corporate governance is about alignment and convergence of the interests of not only the management, but all these stakeholders. So it is about not only making these entities profitable so that they can contribute to the revenue or to the GDP of the country, but it is also about the way they conduct their operations. It is about transparency. It is about ethics. It is about accountability, and they have to, as I said, conform to the regulatory framework, whether it is national or international. But for some of us who have who have practiced the discipline of environmental sciences, we do understand the importance of certain best practices which the public sector undertakings have to engage in, and these are about optimizing on your resources, whether it is a human resource or whether it is the capital or the financial resources. And at the same time, you have to be responsive to the society, to the environment, and in general, you must be perceived as following the best practices, which means that you would aim for a certain brand value for your organization, and because that would also give you some kind of competitive edge. Because if you have a certain brand, and as you are all aware that certain corporate houses in this country do have a certain brand value, and that is a win-win situation for everyone, not only in terms of providing employment, the social security for the people, producing or manufacturing items for the country's various requirement. And I think it is important to really have a serious look at the corporate governance across the board, whether it is a small enterprise or a big enterprise. And it doesn't necessarily have to be relevant in the case of private enterprise, but of course the state-owned or these central government-owned entities. And it is, to my mind, it becomes even more important, especially when we are in a very globally competitive market. So you have to be competitive, you have to have a brand value, you have to be efficient, lean, and at the same time socially responsive. And given the current pitch of the central government on making India an Atmanirbhar Bharat, as well as taking the economy to another level, to something like $5 trillion, which the Prime Minister is aiming at, I think all of us have to put our heads together and see how best these public sector undertakings or entities can be managed. I just take another minute or so. good governance is not specific to only corporate entities, but even in the field of academics. We also are required to adhere to the regulatory framework of our regulatory agencies, whether it is University Grants Commission or some other funding agencies. And we take pride at Tezpur University in employing the best practices as far as the resource utilization is concerned. And so with this, with these few words, I wish you the very best in terms of the deliberations, and I'm confident that all of us would enrich ourselves, because there are participants from Institute of Cost Accountants of India, then from the government side, Dr. Ariz Ahmed Saab is there, and then we have Bishwarup Basu, the president of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, and we have Mr. Balwinder Singh, who is the immediate past president of ICAI, and some very prominent dignitaries, Shri Rajkumar More, the director, Torsa Machines Limited, and my own colleague in the administration, Papuri Barua, and all of the faculty members, and all those participants who are virtually connected. So thank you, Professor Sarkar, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much. Thank you.
A very good morning to all of you, our eminent panelists, our beloved members, my professional brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure to be present here today. I am really honored because I have been given an opportunity to say a few words. The endeavor taken by people, by Mr. Ariz and others to organize a seminar of topic on the topic corporate governance is of immense importance in present economic scenario. Learning gives creativity, creativity leads to thinking, thinking provides knowledge, knowledge makes you great. What is knowledge? Knowledge is nothing but wisdom. Knowledge is the summation of righteousness, courage, and creativity. So the word courage is very important. In today's scenario, transparency, accountability, these words are very important. We need to prove that our government is corruption free. We are duty bound to provide our role at the boardroom. We directors at the board should maintain transparency, ethics. Ethics is also the buzzword which we should maintain. I will not take much of your valuable time. I wish the program a grand success, as because I have to attend another important meeting. I wish the seminar a grand success. I also pray to God for your health, happiness, and prosperity. Before I conclude, I quote a few words. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go, before I sleep. Thank you very much.
Very good morning to all of you. Very distinguished President of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, CMA Bishwarup Basu sir, Dr. M. Ariz Ahmed sir, IAS Principal Secretary, Public Enterprise Department, Government of Assam, Professor V.K. Jain sir, Vice Chancellor, Tezpur University, my co-panelists, Dr. Shalini Thapa, CMA P. Rajwayar sir, Shri Rajkumar Bor sir, Shri B. Paul, and galaxy of these speakers who are taking up these sessions further to this inaugural session. Pleased to be addressing at this event organized by School of Management Sciences, Tezpur University, which is supported by NFCG and the CMA as the knowledge partner. Talk of the corporate governance is the accountability of the board of directors for all shareholders of the corporation. It's basically not only shareholders, I would say it's for all the stakeholders, including the shareholders, employees, suppliers, customers, and the society at large. And the objective is to see that corporation is fair, corporation is efficient, corporation runs with a transparent administration. We can also say there is a system, corporate governance is a system by which the companies are directed, the companies are controlled. In my opinion, it is the governance, the corporate governance is much more than a corporate administration. It's fair, efficient, transparent functioning in the management systems. It is a code of conduct of the board of directors must abide by, and it's a set of systems, set of procedures, set of practices, which ensure that the company is managed in the best interest of all corporate stakeholders. We need corporate governance owing to different reasons we have seen across over a period of a number of years. It has become necessary in view of various reasons, including we have seen there is a widespread of shareholders. Large number of shareholders are spread across nation and even across the world. And majority of shareholders being unorganized and having an indifferent attitude towards corporate affairs, it necessitates that there is a corporate governance. Moreover, we have seen a changing pattern of corporate ownership. It has changed considerably in the present day times with the institutional investors, and institutional investors are Indian as well as the foreign. We have seen the mutual fund also being the shareholders in the large private sectors. These investors have become the great challenge to corporate management, and they're forcing them to abide by certain established code of corporate governance. In addition to this, we have also seen a number of corporate scams and scandals in a couple of years, over a decade or so, to see that the investor, the stakeholder has a confidence in the corporate sector, and further for the economic development of society, this governance is necessary. In addition, the society of today holds greater expectation from the corporate sector. Maybe it is a reasonable price, maybe it's a better quality, pollution control systems, utilization of resources, and other social expectations. All such social expectations also require standardized, or I would say coded corporate governance systems for the best management of the company as well as for the society. We also seen the some hostile takeover of the corporates in recent times, and to see that this doesn't happen, there should be a code of corporate management and corporate governance, which is need for that. World over, the studies also see that there is a huge increase in the top management compensations. Also, there need to be a check, and this corporate governance disclosures and the rules and regulations also need to have a check on that. The Indian companies also have a desire to see that they're listed, large number of companies I would say, that they're listed in the international stock exchanges, and it will be possible only when in India they're running the entity with a strong corporate governance. Standardized codes are important when we go to the global world. And how this corporate governance or what are the principles to be followed, I would say there are certain key ingredients or key principles for corporate governance, which apparent the initial or the very important. I can see the transparency is one, accountability is another, and independence is a third important ingredient or a principle for a best corporate governance. In fact, the transparency is the foundation of corporate governance, and it will be supporting or helping public confidence development in the corporate sector. How to bring this transparency, the corporate need to disclose an accurate information, adequate information, and timely information of their operations and affairs to the general public. If I talk of the accountability, the board, the key management personnel need to use the company's resources in the best interest for the stakeholders, and they are accountable to all stakeholders. If I talk of the independence, the good corporate practices require that the board should be non-partial, impartial, and they should take the decision in the best prudence and best interest of the organization. The corporate governance code is prescribed in the Companies Act 2013, as well as we have a SEBI code of corporate governance. If I talk in a minute on the SEBI code, it discusses a composition of a board of directors, which should include the independent directors, the role of independent directors also. The SEBI code also discusses the composition of audit committee and role of audit committees. It also discusses the remuneration of directors, what is the procedure to fix that, disclosures in respect of that. The SEBI code also discusses the procedure for a board meeting, composition of committees of the board. It further discusses the management discussion and analysis report. It's mandatory to be disclosed, and further required in the management report to be disclosed is opportunities and threats in respect of business also. They need to disclose, after SEBI, the corporate need to disclose the shareholder complaints, investor complaints in their annual reports. And further, the separate report on corporate governance in annual report is also necessary as per SEBI. And a compliance certificate from a professional declaring that the corporate governance norms have been followed is also one part of that. This today's full-day orientation program on corporate governance is an excellent effort on the part of organization, institutes, and the knowledge partners. And with these initial remarks, or I would say the opening remarks, I conclude and wish this event a grand success. Thank you so much, sir.
Respected Vice Chancellor Shri Vinod Kumar Jain, esteemed speakers in the panel, my dear students, good morning. My special focus will be on students to know that with the due permission from organization, I shall speak on the private enterprises, how they follow corporate governance and benefit from it. In all my business and industry career for over 50 years, I have seen people rise and fall, usually for simple things that they do or they do not do. Let us check them out in following slides. I shall tell you how the good governance have helped companies grow exponentially. I have 3 companies. One is Torsa in Guwahati. It operates in Guwahati and Calcutta. Another is very small companies. They are medium-sized companies. But what we got from following the corporate governance is that all my companies across the country, and it is built because of some of the guidelines which are supposed to be followed by the listed companies, but we still follow them, being a small company also, and we are immensely benefited from them. As my previous speaker has already said about what is the framework of corporate governance, and they issue various guidelines which we recommend all the small and big companies, as our very respected Professor Vinod Kumar Jain, Vice Chancellor, has said that corporate governance should be followed by all big or small or government or private companies. I am also of the same view, and we very strongly follow these norms in our all business activities. I will again like to say the students to know that these corporate governance practices are good to follow, and some few of these chapters they should be studied. They can get into some of the study books, or they can go into the sites of SEBI and company register of companies, and there they can get these study materials which they should see. My dear friends, in fact, I am here today with you to impress that though the corporate governance is suggested to be followed by listed companies, however, in our small and medium scale companies, we found these guidelines of great value to create brand. Our brands are created through these corporate governance norms, and we are preparing for further development. We have in mind that in down the line, say 2 year or 3 year or 4 year, we will list our companies with the SEBI. So to prepare these corporate guidelines, they guide us to build the brand, to establish the goodwill, and thereby they give us opportunity to think about development and think about listing the companies in coming times. Corporate governance of my thought, if I'm allowed to say how we think about corporate governance, is a strong board with clear vision for the company, bringing in new dimensions and dynamics, ability to create wealth because all the stakeholders. The corporate governance of my thought is a strong board with clear vision for the company, bringing in new dimensions and dynamics, ability to create wealth because all your stakeholders, your shareholders, your investors, your employees, your suppliers, all will look at how your company is performing and how much really the value addition you are able to do for their shares. Adopting certain visionary guidelines suggested in we follow the United Nations agenda, some of their agendas which suits us, the sustainable value for people and nation. I am very happy subscribed about that, and he has encouraged me, I will particularly say, by saying that the companies should have a human behavior and they should inculcate some of the environmental activities into their activities today. In all my companies, thank you everybody for giving me this opportunity.
Respected Vice Chancellor, eminent speakers in the panel, faculty and students, good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Perfect, sir. Yeah.
Okay. At the outset, I'd like to thank the School of Management Science, Tezpur University, for inviting me to be a part of this panel. This is a very topical subject. I think in the board, I think in the corporate world, corporate governance is the buzzword today. The previous panelists have already discussed what is corporate governance, what are the core principles. So I will not touch on this subject, but I would like to say that the corporate governance is very important because in any organization is important because it reduces the risk of corporate crisis. It also helps us in getting access to external finance or having borrowings at a lesser cost. It improves our operational performance. And for those which are listed, share performance also, it improves. So these are the reason why corporate governance is very important. And the image of an organization having good governance has many, many advantages. Though corporate governance is a buzzword today, but for the last 25 years or so, I think we have been hearing this in the industry. Prior to the 1990s, we don't have guidelines for corporate governance. There was a belief in self-regulation the world over. But the big failures which we see in the Enron, in WorldCom, give a feeling that there is a need for having guidelines which are mandatory in nature. And in India also, I remember during the late 1990s, the industry association came out with guidelines, I think ICAI, ASSOCHAM. Then many committees have also been set up. Kumar Mangalam Birla, that committee was there, Naresh Chandra committee, and after that, Narayan Murthy committee. So many of these committees have been set up and guidelines were laid down. And if you remember, in the old Companies Act, we don't have this concept of independent directors. They're only executive and non-executive directors. The concept of independent directors became more important in India, especially in the 90s because of the liberalization. And there's a feeling that in the corporate world, the promoters were not being fair to the small shareholders. There was also a belief at that time that the financial institutions were only taking care of their own loan or investments and not giving a fair share to the minority shareholders. So we have seen a lot of guidelines. I think those have already been highlighted by the previous speakers. And the fact that we have so many committees shows that in spite of all these guidelines, we still see the same kind of problems. I think these guidelines have not really helped in reducing the corporate crisis. I think we see frauds happening in many companies. And the reason, in my view, is that for a corporate or a board to perform properly, it is important to have good people there. See, in the earlier days, when we look at the executive and non-executive, most of the non-executives are from the promoter group. They may not have experience, they may not have the necessary background, and in many cases, they don't even attend meetings. Later on, when we talk about the independent directors, today, each one of us find it very difficult to get competent independent directors. Further, how do we select independent directors? When we look at independent directors, we normally select people whom we know. It is not possible for us to advertise. And I think it is because of this, the ministry now has come out with this data bank on independent directors. I don't know how this will solve, but the issue of selecting independent directors has been bugging us all these years, because we would like to get people who are experienced, who knows the business, who have, let's say, because we want a board which has experience in all the areas where the organization is dealing. And the only way in which you can select is from people whom you know. So I think unless we are able to really put a structure in place where we have competent independent directors, where the nominees of institutions, nominees from the government are people who have experience in that field, I think this subject will come again and again. I think recently, very recently again, SEBI has set up a committee on the, what is this? I think there is a committee which has been set up under Uday Kotak, I think in 2017, where the recommendations are more or less on the same areas. It only shows that it has not worked. The fact that we need so many committees and we are appointing committees whenever there is a failure somewhere, it shows that it is not working. I think this is a work in progress. I think the students today, I think who are there, I think they are the one where the responsibility is there to provide solution to this. But the subject itself, the corporate governance, I think is a very, very important. As the respected Vice Chancellor said, it is not only in the corporate world, even in the educational institution is important. And I think you can also see educational institution, if you have a good setup, a good management, the organizations, university prosper. If the leadership is not up to the mark, irrespective of all these guidelines, irrespective of all these, I think the institutions as well as the universities, they cannot go forward. So with these few words, I wish the program all success. I've seen you have a very elaborate topic. I'm sure discussion on this topic will highlight all these problems, and you will also come out with some solution. Thank you.
Good morning, friends. See, today I will be sharing what the governments are struggling, rather the present government of Assam is struggling. One is theories, second is in practice. Though many a time we have the best minds in the government, but after joining government we turn out something different. So every time it's an everyday exercise to discipline ourselves, the human behavior. So now, if I'm allowed, I will just share the presentation. To start with, I'm explaining where the Assam public sector enterprise stands. What is the all the philosophy behind the public sector enterprises. See, all this started, the public sector enterprises started before independence. At that time, the industry was inception stage in the country. So government was adopting mixed economy model where the public industry is promoted for self-reliance so that whatever is required for the country can be produced in the country, and at the same time we generate employment, and it addresses the socio-economic needs of our society. After liberalization, so the emphasis was to productivity, efficiency, and it all the sudden put a lot of pressure on the public sector enterprise to deliver, to survive. Because initially, as noted earlier, so before liberalization, the emphasis for the efficiency and effectiveness over a period has eroded. Okay, it is natural in the government systems. Okay, but reasons are government is expanding enormously, and the administration naturally will be under administered. Given the large population and size of the machinery required is not matching, and of course our own systems. That is how we built over a period. So the efficiency, productivities are should have been the everyday business, but in our systems, it been generally it does not tend to be like that. Okay, but it should have been ideally it should be everyday business. Many times we forget because many other priorities it take over. So present state of affairs are one word, they are not good. We need to become professional, and we need to prove our credibility and prove that we are worth. The key players of Assam public sector enterprises are the board of directors, every PSC. The very purpose of public sector enterprise, why we are saying public sector enterprise, unlike government organizations. In government organization, especially for the students, they better appreciate. See, I am principal secretary in the government of Assam. So who is my boss? I report to the political executive. Okay. Whereas in the public sector enterprises, it is not so. Their board of directors are the boss. They are all in all. So they are given a reasonably very good autonomy so that they did not come to other players, stakeholders. The autonomy is very pervasive because that's why the public sector enterprises. So they should behave like a business entity, and where the decision making, everything is empowered to the board of directors, and they're all registered in the Companies Act. Of course, there are some public sector enterprises which are registered, which are created by statute. The separate statute are there, separate acts are there for that. Some are there under Cooperatives Act. So like that, the very purpose of creating public sector enterprise is that the decision making of their operations lies with the board of directors, not with any outside entity. Okay. So further, the board of directors play a very important role, and together with the board of directors, CEOs, the MDs are there, who are the operational heads who delivers based on the decisions of the board of directors, but within the framework of the Companies Act. And administrative department, or in other words, you can say the government, because it's very important for the reason that most of the company shareholder is government. So the government means, as you are aware, government has so many departments. So the company coming under a particular department, they are responsible to ensure that they are the shareholder, they are the principal agency, whereas board of directors are agents. So that principal agent relation is very, very important. The public enterprise department has been defined by the rules of executive business. It is decided by the cabinet of the every state government, similarly the government of India. So under the mandate, so before creating any public sector enterprise in the state, so they had to consult this department, and any appointment to the board of directors or to be consulted. Of course, all these things requires the approval of Honorable Chief Minister. And any investment beyond a particular amount also requires the consultation with this department to see that, to ensure that the investment is reasonable, because it's a public money. And every public sector enterprise behaves in a disciplined manner in terms of accounting statutes, so that they are required to submit the accounts, so that this department scrutinizes and takes a timely course of action. See, the cherished goals of Assam public sector enterprises are to provide financial support, that is welfare, to the different weaker sections of the society. Then basic essential amenities like power, water, housing, and to support the skilled artisans, weavers, and to harness the natural resources, and to promote small-scale industry, and in the agriculture sector, veterinary allied sector, and to generate opportunities. And coming to this particular scenario, where the number of public sector enterprises in Assam are 40, and till now the capital investment has been more than 17,000 crores, with whereas the turnover is only 8,000 crores plus, and profit and loss is clearly visible. It's a matter of concern, I should admit, and the net worth also area of concern. And of course, so presently they are providing employment for more than 35,000 employees. Coming to the corporate governance basics, the basis in the country, one is the Companies Act, then the SEBI guidelines, class 49, and now SEBI LODR 2015. So before we discuss corporate governance, why corporate governance is required? Okay, we are part of the government. So what is expected? We should, because who is my employer? So on paper it is government, but in reality what is government? The people of the country, the people of India. So whatever I am consuming, so I should, because the people of India should know. People of India should know what the government is doing. They are the real masters of the country. So similarly, the word is used as a good governance. Okay, in the general government balance, it's a good governance. So now when it comes to the corporate, means companies, so there should also be some fairness. I mean, not only fairness, the total fairness should be there, because they are using shareholders' money. So just to appreciate what is corporate governance, why every citizen should be concerned. See, this is one case. See, you may think that it is Satyam, it is one organization. No, it is, see, they have taken loans from the banks. Loans means the banks' deposits are by the public. So this is people of India are affected. People of India, it is the responsibility of the government. It is the responsibility of the government. The next slide I am showing. This is the public sector. The Satyam, one may feel that it is a private sector, but whether it is private sector or public sector, the people of India are involved. So it is the responsibility of the government, the regulatory agency, to make sure that everybody's hard work is respected, protected. See, this is one case where the public sector is involved, where the CBI, as per the news item, saying that the MD of the Punjab National Bank is aware about the fraud. Okay. And this is another case where yes, bank scam, everybody knows how the people have suffered.
Respected dignitaries, speakers, and participants, a very good morning to you all. Welcome to our first technical session on corporate governance. The corporate governance landscape has been changing the world ever since the 90s. However, global events coupled with some Indian scams have brought this subject to the limelight. The concept of delegation of power to various board committees is not new, but how the functions of the committees have changed over the years is an interesting to note. Moreover, as defaults increase, the man at the top, comprising of the board members and top management officials, have come under fire many times. Given this dynamism, we must understand what are the checks and balances in the management system under the Companies Act and SEBI listing regulations. Today in these sessions, we will be analyzing the various components of corporate governance that have evolved recently. We are fortunate to have today in this session with us Sri Vijay Kapoor, former Director, Board of Studies, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, ICAI, and member, Board of Postgraduate Studies, Department of Commerce, Tezpur University. In fact, I'm looking forward to Mr. Kapoor to deliberate on this topic today in this session. Given his experience in heading the knowledge center of the ICAI, I'm sure we will learn a lot on the above topics. He has also been an active member in various forums on diverse topics, including corporate governance. He has deep insights into the governance aspects practically too, as he is an avid reader and participates in industry forums for exchanging ideas. I welcome him to kindly deliver this session, and after that, we will deliberate on the topic once again. With this, I pass over the session to Mr. Kapoor.
Thank you, Professor Barua. It's nice talking to you after such a long time, though on a virtual platform. I thank our assistant professor Prayash also. As I begin, I think first of all, let me confess, I was feeling very jealous when Professor Binod Jain was speaking, because he was sitting in the surrounds of lap of the nature, and I could clearly see the lovely voices of the birds chirping all around, you know. So my complaint to Professor Sarkar that he is avoiding all my visits to the Tezpur University. I'm sure he will take it on top priority. That's number one. Having looked at the session, in fact, before I begin, I think all listeners must be acknowledged for their presence, as they are the people, I think I see them like the Lord Ganesha. They are listening. They are listening very carefully, and they have not been able to respond so far. So I actually appreciate their presence, as I have been looking constantly that many people are there, and I'm sure that they are simply not participating, but they're actually listening to the program. Of course, as far as speaking for today's session is concerned, I consider it to be a privilege and honor, because I can never say no to any directive coming from the University of Tezpur. So it's my love and affection for them and their mutual love and affection for me, which makes me strong enough to deliver these talks. I think first of all, let's capture. And I think the just immediate speaker, I think I do not know whether Ariz Ahmed is listening to me or not. I must congratulate him. I think he has made my job very simple. He has covered a lot of background in the corporate governance. But on the top of it, I think he was brutally frank in admitting that what actually is the state of affairs of corporate governance in the Assam public sector enterprises. Believe me, yesterday night I was trying to look at the website of Department of Public Enterprises of Assam. To my horror, I found that the website is not even updated to a large extent since 2016. On the top of it, In fact, I think Ariz Ahmed was, I think, fair enough to admit that accounts have not been compiled for several years. In fact, there is a classification given of, I think, about 35 to 40 public sector enterprises where actually accounts have not been compiled. It really sends shudders that if the accounts are not being compiled, what actually shall actually happen in the board meeting, how the accounts are audited, how the financial information is being compiled. But I congratulate him. I think he did explain the whole topic in a wonderful manner. He was able to give the perspective of the government side on this. And he actually, I think, is the right person. I'm sure that he will take it forward. The other gentleman, Mr. B. Paul, I think he did raise a very good question. He says he's not sure how to select the independent directors. Wonderful question. I think still it remains. I think SEBI has been struggling hard. Companies Act 2013 has undergone several changes. There is no question, complete answer to the question, how exactly to select the right quality of independent directors. And of course, Professor Binod Jain did raise a point that governance is a matter which should not confine to the corporate corridors, but must extend to all other affairs of the society, including the academic institutions. So I'm sure Professor Sarkar and Professor Barua would enjoy that autonomy while working at Tezpur University. Having said that, I think given the time constraints and given the topic and the vastness with which it has been given to me, I thought since I will try to cover the journey of the corporate governance and particularly of the board constitution and various its related element with reference to SEBI listing obligations and disclosure requirements of 2015. So maybe I missed certain things, but my attempt will be that I'm able to give you a bird's eye view what exactly is the direction India has been going. I think at the back of our mind, I think we should be very clear. I think somebody did mention that we want to take this country to 5 trillion. But whatever we may say, today India sits on the head table of any committee in the world. In fact, even the most developed countries of the world cannot think the absence of India while formulating even their own policies. This shows that where actually the India has arrived. And in fact, the recent innovations in the say the vaccine, the way we have actually invented and way we have actually given to the entire world, I think it speaks volumes about the India and its strength. And I'm sure that with this kind of talented people in this country, we can conquer all the grounds. I have absolutely no doubt that we shall be able to reach to the 5 trillion mark, maybe little later because of the COVID situation. I'm sure that we shall be able to reach that mark sooner than expected, you know. And let's not forget that we reached the 1 trillion mark in about 2007 or 2008. And today we are talking about $5 trillion. So the future is very bright. And that should make us conscious, you know, that we should have the best of the policies to be followed by corporates in this part of the world. Now, looking at the first thing, you know, I think I also thank the NFCG and the ICAI particularly for taking in being a knowledge partner for this particular program. And I thank all the active participation from the members on this particular fora. Since I've been associated with the NFCG, I've seen that ICM is now an active part of the NFCG as well. And they're also taking a lot of interest in this particular area. Now, coming back to the topic, in fact, if you look at it, Companies Act 2013, I think Companies Act 2013 was a, I think, change maker, in fact, as far as the corporate governance is concerned. But my only submission is that as a student of commerce, when I'm looking at Companies Act 2013, what exactly we wanted to change over the Companies Act 1956, and have we succeeded there? The first few things, few observations of mine which I want to share with the younger generation, and they should remember. First of all, historically, they should remember that Indian Companies Act 1913 was the first Companies Act which was enacted in India. And after exactly 100 years, we had the Companies Act 2013. Companies Act 1956, which was there on the scene for about 75 years, actually was considered to be a highly voluminous and complex act of its own times. The Companies Act 2013, when it was enacted, one of the major change was that number of the sections were brought down, I think from about 700 to 470. The complexity reason of the Companies Act 1956 was that it contained both substantive law as well as the procedural aspects of the law. Being procedural aspects of the law, it was felt that it is very difficult to administer the Companies Act 1956. But when the Companies Act 2013 came into existence, we saw that in 300 sections out of 470 sections, there were the words "as may be prescribed from time to time." That means the government retained the power to issue circulars, to issue announcements, to issue notifications from time to time. And today we see that Companies Act 2013 is one of the most complex documents it has become. There are so many schedules and there are so many rules, notifications, but on the top of it, since 2013, it has been modified or amended in 2015, it has been amended in 2017, it has been amended in 2019, it has been amended in 2020.
Thank you, Prayas. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I welcome you to the second technical session. Finance is supposed to be the lifeblood of any business. However, we know that paucity of finance is harmful to any organization, but at the same time, plenty of finance may also be harmful. A greatly successful business like Enron created the illusion of too big to fall, but soon it was realized that that was not the truth. Corporate governance failures mostly have some common factors. They are the misappropriation of actual funds or mistreatment of information related to finance. Either of them has devastating effects on the shareholders' value and spoils the market sentiment. The volatility of the market will always be present, but instances like widespread manipulation made in the IL&FS case shake the confidence of the investors. Many boardroom decisions or reports of third parties like credit rating agencies seem to be worthless when entire governance mechanism shatters. It is therefore important to be able to have a primary understanding of the pressure points and red flags, which may be indicators of a governance failure in making. Given this background, today we have with us CMA B.B. Goel, former Additional Chief Secretary, Minister of Finance, Government of India. Shri Goel will share his experiences from his illustrious career with the Government of India and also his views as a finance professional. I request Prayas to introduce Mr. Goel to the audience. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Prayas.
Yes.
Introducing this topic, I think since morning we have been focusing on different aspects of corporate governance. I recall the presentation made by Mr. Arish Ahmed on highlighting the focus of various aspects of governance, followed by the talk given by Mr. Vijay Kapoor, who has recently highlighted a lot of significant changes in the 2013 Companies Act, and he equally highlighted that what are the difficulties in real operation of the corporate governance framework, or the approach followed by SEBI, or the approach followed by the Government of India in appointing or selecting the independent directors, the type of new examinations being introduced, or the new provisions being introduced in appointing them by a double appointment system, through the normal shareholders and then through the minority shareholders. I think what to sum up that in India the concept of corporate governance is getting so much confused. My feeling is that there are so many areas where because of repeat corporate failures, the government try or the regulators try to address those issues, but in the process they complex it much more. So in the end of the day, those good companies who are already following a very good global level corporate governance framework, they find it very difficult to comply with those kind of rules, regulations, and all that. But today's this session is more focused on the need for the financial literacy for the directors, for the board members, and all that. Now, as we can sum up very clearly that any of your board functioning, any of your directors sitting on the board, for whatever discipline he has come from or whatever functions he may be looking after, in whatever capacity he may be independent or non-independent or a functional director, in whatever capacity he is sitting, one of the prime requirement for him is to understand the finances. If he doesn't have a fundamental financial knowledge, if he doesn't have a fundamental financial literacy, it's very difficult for him to really play an effective role as a director on the board of the company, because it's a board which is the supreme authority for the governance, for the running, for the operations, for everything, for taking the key policy decisions or giving a real direction and monitoring the real performance of the company. So it's a complete board orientation. So if a board member is not aware of what is the type of literacy required, so I believe then it's very difficult to expect that the company is perfectly a professional board driven company. So I have made a quick small presentation on that. In the last few years, both at the global level, even and the India level also, we have seen a large number of corporate failures or the corporate frauds or the financial scandals happening in a number of companies or number of banks and all that. Now, as Mr. Vijay Kapoor was also mentioning that the type of people sitting on the board of those companies, the board of those banks, the board of those organizations, are highly experienced and valuable board. Even then, they fail to see that particular issue is turning into a fraud situation or turning into a scandal situation. Even by so therefore, what was missing that those people were either not performing their function. Those people were not either performing their function as a director on sitting on the board, or they were not knowledgeable enough to read the proper documents or the balance sheets or the financial statements of the company. Okay. Now, I just want the friends to read this statement from the court, which says that the defendant directors of the center, there is a company which case went to the court, and then the court really came out with a very ample judgment to understand that what should be the real role and of the directors. It says that the directors of Centro had failed in the performance of their duties to properly read and understand the financial statements and to apply the knowledge they had or should have acquired to perform that task. Please understand. Further, it says, although the court found that they had not acted dishonestly. So the court very clearly says that the directors did not act dishonestly, but each director was aware or should have been aware of the relevant accounting principles, which would have alerted each director to the apparent errors in the financial statements relating to the short-term debt. So if this is the situation, that the directors, even though acted in a bona fide manner, even though they were not dishonest, but because they failed to acquire the knowledge of financial, reading the financial statements, they failed to acquire the understanding that what is the financial working of the company. Therefore, they were not able to discharge their function which was assigned to them as a member of the board. So when they failed in discharging that function, the court punished them. Not because I cannot say that this decision was taken without my knowledge, because I belong to a marketing discipline, or I belong to a personal discipline, or I am a technical engineer. I am not concerned with the finance person. So that is not the case. So given that situation, and now coming to the responsibilities required in the law, or from the directors to have, for the board members to have a real knowledge of the finance. Let's travel to what does the law says. Now, what does it? The section 134 in the Companies Act says that there shall be attached to statement laid before the company in general meeting a report by its board of directors, which shall include, I've just highlighted some of the very, very important, not all, entire provisions is not written here. I'm talking of only very limited areas. Explanations or comments by the board on every qualification, reservation, or adverse remark or disclaimer made by the auditor in his report. Now, how can you, if the auditor has pointed out some mistake and all, and you have no knowledge, you have no understanding, you have no financial literacy, you have no competence to understand how would you be able to reply and give the comments? Similarly, it says the amount, if any, which it proposes to carry to the reserves or declare as dividends, or the material changes of the commitments, if any, affecting the financial position of the company. Look at the type of responsibility cast upon the board. Now, can this responsibility be discharged by the board and the board directors, board members who are collectively responsible for the board running of the company without having fundamental knowledge in the financial areas of the company, financial operations of the company? So therefore, the law very clearly expects that the board members should have a fundamental literacy in terms of understanding the financial statements of the company. Further, we go to the section subsection 5 of the section 134, which says the director's responsibility statement shall state, just see, in the preparation of the annual accounts, the applicable accounting standards had been followed, along with the proper explanation. Now, it expects that the board of directors, when they prepare a director responsibility statement, they must make a declaration that in preparing the accounts of the company, the applicable accounting standards have been followed. Now, if his director sitting on the board is not even aware of that what are the accounting standards, what are the auditing standards, what are the type of standards, can he make a statement of that nature that yes, in a company, the relevant accounting standards have been followed? Similarly, it says that the directors had selected such accounting policies and applied them consistently.
At the outset, I just like to convey my highest gratitude to Tezpur University. So just I'd like to tell you that this corporate governance, according to my opinion, it is not it cannot be controlled only by the Companies Act. Okay, it is a concept. It is a journey which does not have any destination, but path is there, and we have to walk along with this. So it's a journey. It's a continuous process, the corporate governance. So you see that from the childhood, we are very much interested to listen the story. So without going to the different jargons of the company law or any other rules, regulations, Department of Public Enterprise, I just like to tell you a story. The viability of the project is only the comfort securing the quality of any loan asset. You know that when a particular big project comes, say, take up the example of my previous companies, a thermal power project. So whenever I was in the project finance, we used to go to the bank and the financial institutions to borrow money. So at that time, we always give the dream that, sir, itna bada project aega, 1200 megawatt ka project aega, the total volume of the investment will be around 8,000 crores. ये इधर हमारा डीएम प्लांट बनेगा, इधर हमारा दिस आईडीसीटी आएगा, इधर हमारा चिमनी आएगा, ये एरिया में मेरा इलेक्ट्रिक प्रेसिपिटेटर आएगा, चिमनी आएगा, बॉयलर आएगा. We always take on a future view. At that time, we do not have any balance sheet. We do not have any asset in my hand. Whatever the asset we are talking, that is only the future assets. So, and as such, the due diligence of the project before signing the common loan agreement, ensuring compliance to the conditions set of the common loan. CLA means the common loan agreement. One of the leading financial institutions, IIFCL, they also wanted to undertake such type of road project. It is a different project. IIFCL is a government company. They didn't give due diligence to the major risk of the ROD available to the project. In 7 out of 9 NPA cases, non-availability of the required ROW was the leading factor for the non-compliance of the projects, and this project also may go to the NPA. Now the point is this: in para number 5, you saw that generally the C&AG, the Controller of Auditor General of India, highlights or to go for the audit of several public sector undertakings. In the very recently on 31st of March 2019, in the annual report, the Controller of Auditor General level, the C&AG, has highlighted this problem with this particular company. This monitoring of the project progress was weak due to inadequacies in internal control system established by the lenders, particularly the incomplete deficit information contained in the LIE. LIE means Lenders Independent Engineers report and CS certificate. Particularly whenever there is any project finance there, whenever the company wants to draw money to acquire some assets or to establish some assets, at that time, generally the bankers depend upon the LIE report and the CS certificate report, and they also wanted to understand that what is the requirement of the fund. On the basis of that, they generally disburse. The deficiency, there was some deficiency, there was some unadjusted informations, unrecovered, and that the deficiency in monitoring led to promoter taking undue benefits out of the project fund at the cost of the project work in progress. There was some deficiency in the informations, and by which the deficiency led to the loan of around 1,895 crores to 9 projects. Whatever the project was handled by this company, around 9 projects out of 32 projects examined in an audit becoming NPA, which indicate that IIFCL still has a long way to go to achieve its mission of adopting best practices and developing core competencies for facilitating infrastructure development. This note, this comment was done or issued by the Controller of Auditor General of India against this particular company. The corporate governance start from this type of problems. The very why I wanted to give this case reference first, because I just wanted to draw your attention that the corporate governance is nothing, is not that only some of the rules, regulation which has been framed or highlighted in the Companies Act, which is coming from some of the problems which the financial institution faced at the time of the due diligence, and from that particular point of time, the requirement of the corporate governance emerged. That's why I have given this first case reference, and it is this case was evolved by the C&AG audit only. Now I wanted to enter into the corporate governance of the PSUs in India only. You know that the PSUs are totally governed, government controlled. Government should control, but at the same time, government also wants that their day-to-day functioning, their regulations, their controlling should be done by the individual board of directors of that particular PSUs. CPSU means Central Public Sector Undertakings, are expected to expand international operations. Say for an example, whenever there is any PSUs goes for some international operation, as some private companies, private limited companies or the public limited companies also can go to the international operation. At that time, there are so many due diligence happened. Or say for an example, today some of the foreign institutional investors also want to invest in a particular company. They also go for the due diligence. At that time, if that company are able to prove that it is a totally a corporate governance principles, rules and regulations has been properly maintained, then definitely that the company who are investing into this particular company, their confidence grows and they easily invest the money into this particular company. This has happened to the PSUs also. Now, as I have told right now, that the PSUs generally been controlled, the equity wise it is controlled by the governments, but day-to-day functioning and whatever the decision has to be taken on a regular basis, that generally taken by the board of directors and the CMD himself. But indirectly and functionally they are not in, the governments are not involved, but indirectly the government controls the PSUs through a very important mechanism which is called MOU. MOUs is the memorandum of understanding. This MOU has been signed by the CMD of a particular PSUs and the Department of Public Enterprise and the respective ministry also come into the picture. It covers annual plan, budget of the enterprises, as I have already mentioned here. And previously, there are some lacunas in the MOUs, but recently, on 16th of February 2021, the MOU guidelines has already been formulated and it has already been circulated to all the PSUs. Why I am telling you this MOU is very important? Because this is the significant in view of the linkage in the performance linked pay. That means the performance linked pay which a CMD or the director, the board of directors or the executives which they are supposed to pay, that depend upon how far they are in a position to meet up the MOU parameters. That means at the beginning of the year, whenever they are telling that my operating ratios will be like this, and if there will be a deficiency in the operating ratios at the end of the financial year, their PRP may be decreased or there will be a serious observations by the ministry. Now the question comes that who is preparing or who is monitoring these MOUs? There is a high power committee which has been, this high power committee is comprising of the CEO, Nitty Aayog, Finance Secretary, Secretary Expenditure, Secretary Statistics and Program Implementations, Chairman Public Enterprise Selection Board, Chief Economic Advisor, Chairman Tariff Commission, Secretary Public Enterprises. They are the main person who are formulating this MOU. Audit committee, which is the most important committee of the board, where all the listed companies must have an audit committee.
So thank you so much, Professor Sharkar. So it is a great privilege to conduct such a fascinating program on corporate governance and with Tezpur University and in support with NFCG. But from the morning we are having different sessions. So unfortunately, our chairman of Board of Advanced Studies and Research, Devashish Mistraji's connection has been lost. Actually, it was proposed that he will deliberate on some case studies because he is particularly from industry, and then I will sum up his session with some conceptual framework on this topic on responsibilities and expectations of members in case of this in the light of corporate governance. So as his network is in dilemma, so I'd like to give some conceptual framework. Many of the students are also here of the MBA section, and esteemed members are there. So actually, there are two basic responsibilities that I can say for the directors of companies. The responsibilities may be responsibilities to the shareholders and obligation to honesty and integrity. So these are two primary responsibilities of the directors. As you know, the corporate directors are appointed by the shareholders as members of the company. Therefore, the basic responsibility of a director is to the shareholders. It belongs to the shareholders. And the boards need to provide strategic direction for the business, set relevant policies, and supervise the activities of top management. So this is all about strategic policies, not the day-to-day regular intervention. So that will be the responsibilities of the directors. And the boards are required to be accountable to the members and also required to present regular reports and accounts duly audited in most cases in a statutory form. So this is the basic responsibility of the directors, and that goes to the shareholders. And the second part is this honesty and integrity part. So company director is expected to act with honesty, integrity, and candor towards the company, especially to its members. Therefore, decisions must be taken in good faith for the common good. That means any sort of decision, strategic decisions, any sort of financial decisions that has been taken up by these directors, that should be with highest level of honesty, integrity. And in other words, we can say the primary duty of a director is to act honestly, in good faith, giving all shareholders equal, sufficient, and accurate information on all the issues that could affect their interests. Consequently, a director must not make a secret profit out of the dealings with the company. His duty is to disclose any such interest to the board and to abide by their decisions as to what is in the company's best interests. Insider trading, that is dealing in the shares of a quoted company based on privileged, price-sensitive information, is considered a criminal offense which a director shall not do. So we see there are two basic responsibilities from a conceptual framework point of view. That one is to its shareholders, and on another point is from its ethical perspective, that is honesty and integrity. So we can see so much unethical issues that has been rounding across the globe in the name of this corporate governance, bad governance, you can say. So we have to be careful while we will have to discuss on this corporate governance, but this due weightage should be given towards this ethical values of the directors. So to be more elaborately, if we can discuss on this issue, there are some disclosure of information in the part of this directors, that is also responsibilities. That is, members of the board and key executives should be required to disclose to the board whether they directly, indirectly, or on behalf of third parties have a material interest in any transaction or matter directly affecting the company. That disclosure should be made, whether there is anything that creates any material interests. And number two is that the board and top management should conduct themselves so as to meet the expectations of operational transparency to stakeholders, while at the same time maintaining confidentiality of information in order to foster a culture of good decision making. So decision making is one of the important aspects of this good corporate governance, and for that utmost level of confidentiality is to be maintained, and the transparency in operational matters, that is also to be taken care of. So these are two disclosure information that is one of the most important responsibilities of the board. And with this, we are having a few key functions of the board that can be said as the responsibilities of the board in a broader way, like reviewing and guiding corporate strategy, major plans of action, risk policy. I think in our next session we are having more deliberation on this risk management issue. Annual budgets and business plans, setting performance and objectives, monitoring implementation and corporate performance, and overseeing major capital expenditure, acquisitions, and disinvestment. You see, if there are major capital investment, huge amount of capital investment, even we talk about these PSUs that Mr. Mitto has started with talking about these MOUs and all those things. A huge capital investment has been taken care of by these PSUs, big PSUs. So directors are having major responsibility in disbursing and monitoring this type of huge capital expenditure in terms of this corporate governance issue. Monitoring the effectiveness of companies' governance practice and making changes as needed. Selecting, compensating, monitoring, and when necessary, replacing key executives and overseeing succession planning. Sometimes you see somewhere the key persons, CEOs, CFOs, they have been replaced by more efficient ones. So that is one of the major responsibilities of the directors. So to find out the key persons in proper place. Aligning key executives and board remuneration with the longer term interests of the company and its shareholders. Monitoring, managing potential conflicts of interest of management, board members and shareholders, including misuse of corporate assets and abuse in relation to related party transactions. That is another important area where this board of directors responsibility can be easily envisaged. Overseeing the process of disclosure and communications, already mentioned regarding these disclosure issues. And lastly, this monitoring and reviewing board evaluation framework. So the performance of the board that can be evaluated through a proper framework and guidelines. And another important aspect is ensuring the integrity of the company's accounting and financial reporting system. In the last session already regarding financial literacy, Mr. Goel sir has already discussed elaborately how this financial literacy can be easily obtained for these directors and which can be implemented, including the independent audit, and that appropriate systems of controls are in place, in particular systems for risk management, financial and operational control, and compliance with the law and relevant standards. So this is from this perspective, these are the key responsibilities. And lastly, I'll just mention few points on the other responsibilities, other important responsibilities that we are having for the directors. The board should provide the strategic guidance, already have mentioned few strategic areas, ensure effective monitoring of the management, and should be accountable to the company and shareholders. And it should set a corporate culture and values by which executives throughout a group will behave. That is a proper corporate culture, proper corporate ethics that should be properly implemented in the company, in the organization. That is one of the major responsibilities of these directors. Board members should act on a fully.
Thank you, Professor Subhranshu. It's a great, occasion for me to present some of my views in personal capacity in this particular session on the this corporate governance orientation program, where risk management and whistleblower mechanism will be discussed. First of all, I convey my heartfelt thanks, and also I want to congratulate the management, science, from Tezpur University, that they have thought such a beautiful, this theme of the whole day seminar. In fact, as a member of the institute and as a professional, I feel that this is now the call of the day, that the professional institute and all others will be handholding for the benefit of the society at large. From the very morning I was attending this program, and I found a lot of discussions were already been done, and especially the inaugural session was a fascinating one, I must say, with the presentations of Dr. Ahmed and other speakers. Let me just go back to the year 2020, 23rd February, which you will perhaps remember that it's a glorified day, I should say, in northeastern Assam, Guwahati, when a conference was organized in the Hotel Radisson, where all the public sector enterprise MDs and CEOs were present, and none less than the leader like our principal secretary, Dr. Arij Ahmed, actually, he navigated the program in such a manner, and where all the institutes are involved, all the professions are involved for the benefit of the organizations, PSCs in Assam, for their rehabilitations for their rejuvenations, and a lot of problems those who are facing, that has been considered and discussed there. But it is not the end itself. That's at the beginning. And a lot of programs, lot of meetings were held under the leadership of Dr. Ahmed, and we were very happy to be associated with this particular meetings, and we could, in our capacity, whatever best possible, advice or suggestions have been given, we have always tried to put it before the committee, the task force. And really, I am grateful that today Dr. Ahmed has really given a beautiful presentations. I think a lot of, after Mr. Kapoor and other speakers, what I have told, I'm sure that we have to be dealing with the subject, the cost of repetition. It can't be, because all the exhaustive informations have already been given to the participants. So respected participants, those who are here, and especially my dear students, those who are attending attentively from the very morning of this this program, I'm really feeling excited to put some of my presentations before you. So you see, this particular session, which has been devoted for the risk management and whistleblower policy, taking cue from Dr. Nondi's deliberations. He was impressing upon, and he was emphasizing upon, rather, on the risk management issue. A risk management issue is, I understand that it starts from our home. When we just start our, when we put our step just outside our door of the home, one word comes from our parents, that take care. The two words are very essential, take care. And there the risk management process starts. So I think this is not a very new one. Of course, the incorporate, when we will be talking about the corporate governance under the Companies Act 2013 and SEBI LODR 2015, of course, the risk management has got different parameters, different understanding. But before that, I just want to mention before you that my discussions will be centering out these discussions. I will be discussing on corporate governance, because corporate governance, definitely, it is the pillar of the whole discussions. So we have to discuss some points on corporate governance, as I understood. And let me give this, whatever discussions I will be doing, it would be my personal capacity. And my institute is no responsible for my, this is my disclaimer, my institute is no responsible for my any remarks or any contents. So corporate governance, the risk management and responsible business, reporting of frauds, corporate social responsibility, business ethics, corporate sustainability, business responsibility reporting, and whistleblower mechanism. I have thought in this way that once we'll be talking about any risk management issue and whistleblower policy, let us keep our discussions confined in these areas. So when we'll be talking about corporate governance, this corporate governance is a much talked subject. Already it has been discussed by our very esteemed speakers in the first of the session. So I will be just putting some of my thought process. So with the increasing focus in recent years on corporate governance, the role of the professionals has grown in importance. The pace of regulatory change and public mistrust of institutions means that professionals have more than ever to do in bigger and more significant roles as the guardians and leaders of good governance. My dear students, you are here, so you will be definitely dreaming for becoming a professional. So once you try to think on this score, you always think that you have got a greater responsibility to execute in this corporate governance issue. Then you see the corporate governance top 5 mechanisms which are vital for implementing an effective corporate governance in any organization, which are independence and appropriate composition of the board, which has been discussed at length, role of auditors, internal and statutory and audit committee. Then the whistleblowing, this is one of the issues we'll be discussing, shareholder engagement, transparency, trust, and accountability towards stakeholders. And once we are thinking on that, we have to also think that regulations on corporate governance can only provide the framework or structure to ensure that companies are governed in the best interest of the stakeholders at large. But its effective assimilation and implementation is to be ensured by active participation in strategic planning process, risk management process, internal control process, management information system, corporate communications, succession planning, CSR, board performance evaluation process. So this will ensure high-level corporate administration in accordance with best governance practice, which would result in well-governed and sustainable business for the benefit of its stakeholders at large. So here we could be very much assured that whatever we'll be doing in our professional life, as whether as a manager, whether as a board level member, whether as a professional, so the various issues on the various process, we have to be very much adapted ourselves. I remember the discussions which has been done by our CMA BB Goel. He has very much he was emphasizing on the financial literacy, and he referred to central case. I remember that this is one of the very important issues in our life, because ultimately the the half knowledge is no knowledge. You have to be very much knowledgeable. You have to have the efficiency. So it is not that only theoretical knowledge will help you. You have to understand the applied knowledge, and that is only possible if we continuously simply go with these particular processes exhaustively in our practice. And now that we discuss about the risk management and responsible business, while risk taking is a fundamental driving force in business and entrepreneurship, the cost of risk management failure is often underestimated, both externally and internally, including the cost in terms of management time needed to rectify the situation. Corporate governance therefore ensure that risks are understood, managed, mitigated, and when appropriate, communicated. This is definitely a beautiful excerpt from the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, on risk management and corporate governance 2014. Already it has been referred by our Dr. Aljamed that this OECD has given the definition of risk management for the corporate governance. Next, when we'll be thinking for this particular risk management has emerged as the core business function critical to the very existence of the entities. So you have the risk return trade-off. You have the premium for the risk. And you see, the most important issue that we always feel that how the risk will be mitigated. So risk management is a preventive process. So from that angle, we have to think that how this risk management will be important for the corporate governance. Effective, actionable, risk-based decision-making framework is needed to meet the challenges. And in this today's world, which we have already witnessed in the post-COVID-19, it's a VUCA world, which was already this much discussed subject. The vulnerability, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Like never before, this business world is something different. And running a business is challenging. And for business committed to doing so in a reasonable manner, there is the added pressure to ensure.
So a very good evening to all of you. And, I've been listening to this session from the very beginning. So there are certain things I really wanted to share before I go into the main topic. So today I realized that what exactly is transparency. We have been talking of corporate governance. I've been into this field for 17, 18 years. Fortunately worked with good brands. I've also been working with the government of India in the ministry as a consultant to NFCG. So transparency is the key role that plays very, very significant contribution in corporate governance. And I think today, the way Arit sir has made the presentation, he personifies transparency. I mean, it is not because he is the principal secretary, but it is only because how he presented the real facts. So the first pillar of corporate governance is transparency. And I really, thank Arit sir for actually bringing up the topics in such a transparent way so that we can identify where the problems are. The second person whom I would like to really thank is Mr. BB Goel, because he highlighted the importance of whistleblower. And at the same time, I've been, listening a lot about the test of independent directors. So I did see Mr. Sarkar, Professor Sarkar smile when he said my name, that I'm a qualified person who's done his, IICA certification. And I was also thinking that, should I tell him not to disclose it? Because a lot of things have evolved around this test. But yes, it's a test. I've qualified, and somewhere or the other, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and it was a very old provision in the Companies Act. Rather, when the Act was passed in 2013, this provision was there, but it took time to bring it into live action. So yes, IICA MCA certification test does not actually ensure everything, but yes, it is a kind of a test that everybody is free to take, and it does not ensure or assure anything, because even getting professional degrees does not assure anything. In all the corporate governance cases that we see, there were firms, big firms like the Big Fours involved. There are orders against people in PwC. The managing partner of PwC was fired. So you can't blame any profession, neither can you say that a profession will ensure everything. Now, coming to the context of whistleblower, thank you, Chitranjan sir, for setting the context. Now, I was just thinking how to quickly begin, and I had a video to show on Satyendra Dubey. Now, most of you would think I will not play it. Most of you would think, okay, it has already been discussed. Chitranjan sir has talked about Satyendra Dubey. We had so many whistleblowers. Now, this is where I want to deviate from. The concept of whistleblower that I will tell you is not about Satyendra Dubey. It is not about any other case. It is not about candlelights. It is corporate whistleblowing. Now, please keep it in mind. The topic that I'll discuss in the next 15 minutes applies right from the stenotypist to the managing director and CEO itself. The concept of whistleblower, to which we everybody, whenever you Google it, you will find the name of Satyendra Dubey. Unfortunately, when I teach in IIT, I always give his story because he's from IIT, and he gave up his life because he was a brilliant engineer in NHAI, and he exposed a land mafia, and he had to give up his life. But all that you see regarding these cases, these are whistleblowers who are working for the society as such. And let me tell you, see, I am from commerce, all of us are. I always try to find why am I doing it. Professor Sarkar has around 38 years of experience. So whenever he tells me, sir, jab bhi class loge na, you tell them why are students going to study it. And I realize that yes, why only a student? Even a businessman wants to know what will I get. This is what in India we call as the baniya mentality. Baniyas, businessmen, what will I get? So you must understand the kind of whistleblowing regime that we are seeing in the internet, or the kind of idea we have about whistleblower, is not about one single company. It is not about one single employee. It is about the society. So I am not going to delve into this kind of whistleblowing. This is the first difference that you would all see. I am going to talk about individuals, employees working in companies. I will talk about cases of, yes, Satyam, obviously, yes, ICICI Bank, and my favorite, the Ranbaxy case. Now, why do I call it Ranbaxy? Like I told you, you must always understand what will I get. So the first question as a whistleblower, which I will ask, please put all yourselves in the shoes of a whistleblower. When you think of blowing the whistle, how comfortable are you? Are you going to gain or are you going to lose? You will do your maths, whether you're a cost accountant, company secretary, or even a simple chaprasi. You will do your maths. Cost benefit analysis, iske liye you don't need degrees. Even a rickshawala knows what a cost benefit analysis is. So whistleblowing, the kind of whistleblowing what I'll be talking about, is something which employees need to think about, not about activists, not about people like Satyendra Dubey, not about people like who have brought changes in the society. Because what kind of whistleblowing we are talking about, as given in Companies Act, is company specific. Now, why is it important? Further on, I wanted to start with a brighter side. I will not play a video on this person called Dinesh Thakur, but I'll leave it to all of you to do a bit of Google, but I'll narrate a brief background. Now, Dinesh Thakur was head of research in Ranbaxy Laboratories. And we all know that Ranbaxy was sold off to Daiichi a couple of years back. And unfortunately, when Ranbaxy was being sold, there was certain data which was not properly published, and the US Drug Association got hold of it. So when the transfer took place, the Daiichi guys, the Japanese, bought Ranbaxy. They were happy with all the things, but unfortunately, in between, the US Drug Association put a huge penalty on the new buyers because they only knew Ranbaxy. They did not know the Japanese guy or the earlier members. So when it turned out that there was a certain misinformation given in drug trials to the US drug authority, so the new buyers had to pay up a huge fine. Now what happened is there was this guy called Dinesh Thakur, and why is he my hero? I'll tell you, because Dinesh Thakur was a well-educated Indian scientist. He was head of research. So what he realized is that, this kind of misinformation could cause deaths to a lot of people. A lot of people could lose their life if wrong drugs are sold in the market. So like all human beings, he went to the Supreme Court of India. He filed a public interest litigation. Now, all of you know, or rather, all of you must have watched Jolly LLB 1 and 2. Yes, that is public interest litigation, what I'm talking about. So he went to the Supreme Court, but unfortunately, there were certain circumstances where the Chief Justice of India in 2016 made these remarks. Because he was stationed abroad, he came to India to file a case in Supreme Court of India, but the Chief Justice had to say that an overseas citizen has come all the way to challenge a rule. What is your locus? Locus means how are you related? And then the judge said that, you are a public person, so let law takes its course. Later on, the case was actually dismissed, unfortunately. I think there is a disturbance coming from somewhere. No issue. So the case was dismissed by the Supreme Court because the court thought that it is a mere academic issue for which Dinesh Thakur came to the Supreme Court and said that he had insider information about the wrong drug formulation that Ranbaxy had given, and he wanted to, wanted the court to take action. So the Supreme Court of India was of the view that, there are so many people dying in jail, there are so many under trials. Why should we waste our time on such a trivial issue? The court in India did not take cognizance of this kind of a thing. Fortunately, Dinesh Thakur went back to US. The US drug authorities entertained him. And please do your Google. You will see Dinesh Thakur was granted amnesty, which means he was given protection by the US authorities. He gave up.
I will elaborate the basic things of the corporate governance and regulator in the changing scenario. So first of all, what is my understanding about corporate governance? Dear students, corporate governance is basically rule, process, law, regulation or control which helps in the business. Which corporate governance affect the interest of stakeholder, shareholder, customer and supplier. The basic purpose of corporate governance is to facilitate effective entrepreneurial and prudent management that can deliver long-term success of the company. Basically, corporate governance brings transparency. If any company is having transparency, then people like that type of company. The component of good governance, as per my understanding, is there should be transparency in the operation, transparency of operation, accountability toward the shareholder, fairness in the dealing and independence. Independence, like there should be some independent director, auditor who does not belong from the company. So they can freely and independently give their valuable input to the company. So four basic thing for the corporate governance. This is my understanding. As I told, my session is basically for the students who is not very much aware about the ROC, means Register of Company, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and other field officers of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Basically, dear students, Register of Companies, ROC appoints under section 396 of Companies Act 2013 there is a provision in the Companies Act wherein appointment of ROC is defined. As of now, we are having 15 Registrar of Companies office across the country. The Registrar of Companies is an office under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, which is the body that deals with the administration of the companies and limited liability partnership in India. At present, there are 25 ROCs is operating in all the major states and union territories. However, states like Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra have more than one ROC under the section I told you, under the section 396. The principal duty of ROC is registering both the companies and LLPs across the states and union territories. Registrar of Companies, dear students, maintains registry of record concerning companies which are registered and with them and allow the general public in accessing this information on payment of a stipulated fee. The central government preserves administrative control over the Register of Companies with the help of regional directors. As of today, there are 7 regional director RDs and supervising operation of ROC within their relevant regions. Dear students, the normal function of ROC is basically ROC take care of registration of company, also referred as incorporation of the company in the country. It completes regulation and reporting of the companies and their shareholder and the directors, as also administers government reporting of several matters, which includes annual filing of numerous of documents by way of e-forms. The Registrar of Companies plays an essential role in fostering and facilitating business culture, and Registrar of every company in the country requires approval of the ROC. Before incorporating a company, every company has applied for by way of e-forms to get name approval and for their incorporation. The ROC provides incorporation certificate which conclusive evidence to existence of any company. A company once incorporated cannot until the name of the company is struck off from the register of ROC, Register of Companies. Among the other functions, it is worthy to note that Register of Company could also ask for supplementary information from any company. It could search its premises and seize the books of account with the prior approval of court, and without there is a provision under section under Companies Act under section 12. Registrar of Companies can visit the register office of the company, and it can under section 12 Registrar of Company may go the and find out whether the subject companies proper maintaining the register office or not. It is proper maintaining of their books and books of account and all, register and all. This is the this under section 12 Register of Companies can go and find out whether the company is complying that section or not. And the thing is that if after this IBC, Registrar of Company can file and winding a petition under section 272 and 271 and 272 before the NCLT. Dear student, as the subject of curiosity, you may ask that how company registered with the ROC. So in this connection, dear students, I can say no company can come into existence by itself. It's required a certificate of incorporation issued by the Registrar of Companies after finalization of several statutory requirements. As part of statutory process, and the promoters need to submit several documents to the Registrar of Companies. These documents includes memorandum of association, article of association, the pre-incorporation agreement for appointing director, managing director, and the declaration by an authorized person confirming that requirement requirements relating to the registration have been adhered to. After all this, after authenticating the documents, the registrar ROC inputs the company name in the register of companies and release the certificate of incorporation. The registrar, together with the certificate of incorporation, also issue a certificate of commencement of the business. For that purpose, company has to file another e-forms. A public limited company is required to get this certificate prior to the commencement of the business. The role of there is several role of the ROC in the administration of the administrating the company. Once company is asking for the shifting of register office, changing of its name, they have to file e-forms, general ones, by enclosing the petition for the changing or shifting of the register office from one state to other state, and thereafter ROC forward a report to the regional director, wherein regional director sanction an order that yes, shifting of register office may take place. So all these things, dear students, this is the basic function of the ROC. There are lots of things because ROC, the custodian of the companies in 2013 and other relevant rules. So this is my say regarding this topic. I will not take much time on in my this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It is always nice whenever you arrange a program. I feel so interested and so excited because Tezpur University's programs are always well planned, designed, and today's topic, that is the corporate governance, I can see from the day early morning 10 a.m. when it started, and now it is already 4. So Tezpur University along with the ICMA, they have shown us how governance can be throughout this program. So first of all, sir, I would like to thank the Tezpur University, the Vice Chancellor of Tezpur University, the Institute of Cost and Works Accountant, and also the NFCG for conducting this program, through which all our members of the PSUs, the students, then other fellow professionals are getting benefit from it. I'll also be thankful to our very own Aris Ahmed sir, who has taken a you can say very difficult task, you can say, and he has, I hope and I believe he is successful to some extent also in reviving and you can say putting corporate governance in place in the state PSU. So my since I am a practicing company secretary, so I will deliberate. I will say that we as a company secretary have the privilege of being inside the board among the other professionals. There are various other professionals engaged in the company, either is chartered accountant, cost accountant, lawyers, or other things, but we are the privileged one to be inside the board. So as a company secretary, we know what happens inside the board and how the board functions. So when we talk about corporate governance, so my you can say experience as a company secretary, it says that corporate governance flow from the top. If you want to put a better corporate governance in an organization, in a company, it should come from the top level. If the board at the top is properly governed, if the board at the top level is properly you can say disciplined, properly intimated, properly made aware of the various instruments of corporate governance, then the flow can be towards the downwards, and enter corporate structure can follow and can go in a good governance guidelines. So there we have many students here. As a company secretary or as a member of the institute, we will say that our institute has given 2 basic structure which you can get benefit of it. That is the secretarial standard. The secretarial standard 1 and secretarial standard 2, it guides the company secretary, it guides the board of directors, it guides the government, governing body of the company, how they should conduct the board meetings what are the disclosures to be made, how the disclosures to be made, what is the process to be followed. So as a professional, as a guide to the board, if we adopt this secretarial standard 1 and 2 in our every activities, I think most of the issues will be answered there. Now, from the day, early morning, everybody is speaking about the corporate governance, corporate governance. But this corporate governance is not a new concept. And as many of our speakers also that there cannot be a straightforward or there cannot be a fixed instrument of corporate governance. The instrument of corporate governance will depend on how you adjust to the situation, how you adjust to the rules, how you tell to the board that this is what you have to do. As a company secretary, I'll tell you, I have come across few questions in the board. And which is very important for a person who is guiding the board in following the corporate governance to have answer of those questions. One question is that sometimes the board, you will find in the board meeting, there's a proper composition of the board as per the executive, non-executive directors, independent directors also. But it some happens that the independent directors, they are mum in the board meetings. They don't express so much in the board meeting. So as a company secretary, if some agendas comes to us, if some agenda comes to you, which you think that the board, the independent director can deliberate on it, but he is putting silent. He is not expressing his views, maybe for various reasons. Then it is the duty of the professional, because in a board meeting, if you see the structure of sitting in a board meeting, the company secretary always sits close to the chairman, near the chairman. So you should always maintain a rapport with the chairman, so that either it is through WhatsApp, through message, or through chat. You should be able to tell the chairman that, sir, please get his views on this. So that the chairman can get, because about in a board meeting, there may be various other members. So the chairman will not be able to know whom to ask the question, whose views to be taken. So these things, as a company secretary, you have to be very careful and meticulous how to get information from them. Then sometimes it also happens that the selection of independent director. I will come to the selection of independent directors. So the directors, we all have read in this in the morning session also, there's a nomination and remuneration committee. Okay, nomination and remuneration committee. The nomination and remuneration committee selects the lower level or the second level management or the employees of the organizations, and the independent directors also. So while selecting the independent directors, we have to see, the company has to check whether they are doing justice to it, whether this independent director which they have selected are only independent by name, or they are independent truly in the spirit and subject. Because we have seen many cases, because in one of the session, one of the speaker was telling about the giving examples of all the big, you can say, corporate governance failures in the country. And the examples of Jet Airways was also included in that. So Jet Airways, there's a chairman and Naresh Goyal, the CMD post is together. So we have to select, and in Jet Airways also 2 independent directors resigned. Before 1 year before their business was shut down, 2 independent directors have resigned. So we have to check questions on that. Okay, are we selecting the independent directors properly? Are we training the independent directors? Because as a company secretary or as a professional supporting to the board, you have to guide to the board, because there's one concept called for the liability. Whether for any issues in the company, whether the board is only liable, or all the other person involved in the affairs of the companies are liable. Because somebody said that board, what is the functions of a board? What is the function of a board? Because we also spoke about the education of the independent director. So can an educational qualification measure the capabilities of an independent director? I have seen the moment in the Companies Act 2013, the ministry has said that they will prepare a database of the independent director. Across the country, there's a rush for various professionals, various retired persons to go get and enroll in the independent director database. with that hope that I will become an independent director. But actually, the company has to decide whether they really need those independent directors. Because those persons who are really good and who will be really serving you in the board, you have to search those persons. They need not search you. And independency, so long the board can be managed by an independent director, there's a separation of chairman and MD, there's a separation of the board from the promoters group. The promoters should not get involved in the day-to-day administration of the company, in the day-to-day management of the board, that the company will flourish, that the company will prosper. We have also seen various other issues of corporate governance, I will say. If as a student, I will request Sarkar sir also, if all the failures of corporate governance in the country, whatever cases we take, we say then CCD, Cafe Coffee Day, we can take Yes Bank, we can take this Nirav Modi's case. So every case has given them some lessons.
I am audible?
Yes. Audible, and we can see you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and all participants. It is a very fascinating and very energetic day for all of us and all the stakeholders also. First of all, on behalf of Tezpur University, which is a central university, I express my thanks to the organizer, the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, the National Foundation of Corporate Governance, the technical staff for this virtual support. I especially thanks to Professor S.S. Sarkar, Department of Business Administration of our university, who have done a first-class job and extraordinary effort to make the program very successful. We can make a clap of making a clap for him. I thank to the Vice Chancellor, Tezpur University, Professor Vinod Kumar Jain, for sparing his valuable time and highlighting the corporate governance in the corporate as well as in the education sector also. My heartfelt thanks go to CMA Vishwarup Basu, President of the Institute of Cost Accountant of Media. Sir, you are being exceptionally helpful and also highlighted the corporate governance in the inaugural section. Thank you very much, sir. We are also thankful to CMA Balvinder Singh, immediate past President of the Institute of Cost Accountant of India, for his address on corporate governance for this orientation program. I also express my thanks to Mr. B. Pal Mukti, CMD Northeastern Development Finance Corporation Limited, Guwahati, for sparing his valuable time to address the such issues on corporate governance. I also express my thanks to Sri Rajkumar More, the Director, and Dr. M. Oriz Ahmad, the IAS Principal Secretary, Government of Assam, for sparing their valuable time and focus on the orientation program in his brilliant speech, sir. My thanks to eminent speakers of the technical sessions, Professor Papuri Bodua, the Dean of the Tezpur University, Sri Vijay Kapoor, Professor Chandan Goswami of this Tezpur University also, CMA B.B. Goel, CMA Devasis Mitra, CMA Dr. D.P. Nandi, CMA Chittaranjan Chattopadhyay, CS Amitabh Banerjee, our visiting faculty of Tezpur University, Dr. Ramesh Kumar, and CS Vimal Devnath sir. Thank for everyone who participated in this orientation program. And my thanks to all, because of all of you help this orientation program and all make this event very successful. Finally, thank you all of you and have a pleasant evening. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, sir.
So I now request the Institute of Cost Accountants, the technical team there, for just play the national anthem to end the program graciously. So it's over to the technical team to play the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे